Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. The one who is joining me, as always, and is current poobah of Frasier, and I literally looked into your eyes last episode as we recorded. Sejohn, are you real?
Yeah, okay, no shit. The first thought I had the second we started, the second you got out your first line was, I can't tell if this is a recording or not. Without him in front of me anymore, I don't know what's real.
I'm real. R-E-E-L. No, I guess so. He's Sejohn Sarowick. Sejohn Sarowick is who he is. And the reason I ask why you're real, not the fact that I can't look into your beautiful eyes as we record. I mean, we need to talk about what that setup was, because in a lot of ways, I felt like we were playing Russian roulette.
I told you that we should have separated the desks and stared at the walls like back to back.
There was only the one table. If it were two separate desks, then we could have pulled it off.
Table.
Yeah.
Or even a bigger table. It was also a tiny table.
It was smaller than a card playing table. I still loved the experience, but there was not much that we could have done to not be staring into each other's eyes.
Right, we were too kind of like in awe of the moment to really kind of settle in on these thoughts. But man, like they were definitely like looking back on it. I am just like, what the hell were we thinking?
I mean, it was good, and hopefully it sounded good. And if you're here from that good sounding episode and following up the historic moment for the Say Report, welcome. But the real reason I ask why you're real or not, holy fuck, that was so many reels.
We sat closer together at that table than we did when we were at lunch an hour earlier at a restaurant.
That's true. Yeah. Because I slid all the way in and you stayed on the outside of the booth like normal human beings do. No, but the reason I have to know if you're real or not is because HBO, of all places, so Warner Brothers, Casey Buoys, has admitted that they were using fake Twitter accounts to combat TV critics.
Yeah,
now it's one thing. It is one thing, and it is a thing that we have talked about on this show, that of course there are like bot accounts, and that like the echo chamber, as much as it might be a couple of people, is probably supported by fake Twitter accounts, right?
I mean, trolling like even if you want to dial it down to the point where somebody is saying a thing online that they don't truly believe, not that they're even pretending to, they're not catfishing, they're not pretending to be anybody else, they're literally just going out and just saying a thing to be inflammatory. This is trolling, right? Like, we are all aware that this is a thing that does happen in the world. That is something we have talked about many times on this show.
It's one thing to think that it's the quote-unquote fans or trolls who are doing that. It is a whole other kettle of bananas to find out that it is the actual media companies being so insecure that they're like, well, we need to amass our own Twitter bot army.
It's that kind of conspiracy theory that when you hear it, it's so lame that you don't want it to be true. Like, not that it's so scary you don't want it to be true, because at the end of the day, it also doesn't really. I mean, if anybody knows what they're doing out there, they know how to spot when somebody's not being genuine in their shit, right? And those that don't, at least, are aware enough to take everything with a grain of salt online, right? Like, but so it's so inconsequential and so lame that you cannot fathom that anybody would ever go through with it. If you wrote this into a script of some kind, somebody would call it like passe and like edit it out, right? Like
we don't need Warner Brothers to have fake Twitter bots fighting their battles. There's enough conflict that we don't need to add that completely unbelievable wrinkle into this story.
Right, it's so convoluted and unnecessary, right? But nope.
Apparently,
reality doesn't give a shit about what we think fiction, what sounds better, right?
Yeah, and it's been a pretty crazy week in terms of the strike. Right now, their last, best, and final offer, AMPTP, AMPTIP, the Association of Movie and Television Producers, Motion Picture and Television Producers, they've given that to SAG-AFTRA, and they are currently mulling it over. And honestly, based on what AMPTIP has to say about what they're offering, not only did they meet them, they came to them with everything that they're offering. So, by all accounts, hopefully the strike will be over this week. But I'm not confident that that's going to happen, Sejohn.
I don't. I think we're about to see something fucking unprecedented happen in this year. I think we're about to see some shit blow up, and this is going to be a really weird Christmas for a lot of people. If this gets resolved, that is that is an almost unfathomable world to me because it means that man, there's going to be like a weird weird scramble to like everybody get back on their feet and get back to business only just for everybody to go their separate ways for the end of the year, which is what the whole like conversation that we talked about this on the show last week, right, where they were like, if this doesn't get resolved, then we see no
see
reason
you in
to resolve it until after the new
2024.
year.
Have an awesome winter.
So like it's one of those things where I'm starting to wonder how many people on certain sides of the table want this thing to not work, right? Like it's starting to be a matter of I don't think anybody I think there's a growing contingency of people that don't even want this to be resolved yet, right? Like that's like a whole other part of the math for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially we know for a fact that on SAG-AFTRA's side, there are all those people who signed that letter saying if we're not getting what we deserve and what we want from these negotiations, we're not going to say let's do it. There's like 100 people who signed that letter that said, like, we're willing to continue striking until we get what we want.
I think this really shows, and I think it's just really evidence of what dire straits they were already in when they were working.
Agreed.
Right? If they are in a position to say something like that now, it really nails home how bad things must have really been. Because I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's saying, well, don't they want to get back to work so they can keep a roof over their head? And the point of this whole thing is they weren't able to keep a roof over their head to begin with, right? And so, like, so I essentially, from what we're to understand or believe, at least, the SAG-AFTRA has nothing to lose here, right? And so, like, making sure they get what they're demanding, of course they are, right? Because, like,
and that's the reason you go on strike.
Is nothing, right?
You don't,
right. Right, exactly. Like the idea that they even called this strike should have been evidence enough that something needs to change, right? So it's wild to me that there's still these conversations about like, is there any way for them to meet in the middle on this stuff? Because it's like, I besides what they have already said they're willing to do, I don't know what more you can ask from people, right?
Right. I don't know. It's been a wild week with the reading and all of that and stuff that we can't. If we're still abiding by what they've asked of us, and again, we're voluntarily doing that. I want to make sure that people know that. But voluntarily, if we're not going to talk about struck work, there's a lot of things that we can't talk about that are related to the strike. That is crazy. So we'll see what happens over the next week. We're still not talking about anything here. But then the other thing, right? Like just a little bit of housekeeping. As soon as we can talk about struck work again, Sejohn, you and I have to have a pretty big production meeting to discuss how we move forward. Not necessarily with these weekly episodes. I love what we've done with these weekly episodes.
I propose a Billy Joel-esque song and dance to cover everything we made.
If it weren't for Fall Out Boy, I'd be right there with you. Fall Out Boy kind of took the wheels out from under that. I suppose I could go REM, right?
Yeah.
That's great. It starts with a SAG strike. There we go. There we go. We can go from there.
And there it begins. 100%. Yeah, we gotta for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's like the other thing that makes it really weird is trying to like. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about that I don't know if they're SAG related or not. So like one of the big things that I've been really curious about is there's been a lot of actors and actresses out there kind of promoting some stuff that they're doing specifically geared towards like audio format. So like for instance, there was a new season of the Batman audio show that dropped on Spotify. They had one last year, and it was a success. So they put a second season out of it this year. And there are people involved with that have been out promoting it in places and talking about it. And it's like, oh, is this not? I guess it's not screen, right? Like, so what does this fall under? And like that stuff gets super sticky. And to that point, it's like that seems to be what a lot of people are doing, at least as far as acting is concerned. Like they're doing these other quirkier side project stuff right now. Comedy Bang Bang is still going strong with guests on talking about silly shit and like that kind of stuff. Like whereas they're not promoting whatever show. Maybe it's a book, maybe it's a whatever. But like where are those lines like when it comes to that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I agree.
Videos, I mean, right?
The other thing is the reason why we say we're not going to talk about struck work is we're not under any sort of contract or obligation to do so. they had that written right into those rules that we went over in the Stay Report, SAG-AFTRA, and that if
we're not under any contract to talk about work that may or may not be compromising. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Because there are some of those people, like that Batman thing, if that was already under contract, they could say, well, I'm standing with SAG-AFTRA and I'm not going to do this, but you lose your job. I mean, what we can point at is...
But, like, the product comes out, right? But at some point, like, we've seen this happen with movie, like, with film specifically. The marketing goes out the window because they're not going to show up on late-night shows to talk about their movie. They're not going to go out and sit at press sittings and stuff like that. Like, that is tied up in all of it.
I mean, you say that, but the new Hunger Games prequel got an interim agreement so that they could advertise for it, which is a whole other sticky thing.
Right.
Like,
but in that situation you just pointed out, they had to go out of their way to do something specific and special, right?
Yeah.
Right. I cannot imagine that Spotify is doing that with their new season of the Batman audio show. I cannot imagine that these YouTube like let's have these guys eat snacks and talk about their movie type shit. Like I cannot imagine that they're going out of their way to get special permission from SAG-AFTRA to let this stuff go. Maybe they are. Maybe it's that easy. It seems like if it's such a unique thing. If it was such an easy thing, I feel like we'd see more movies doing it. And since it seems to be such a unique thing with the movies, I have to imagine it's the same way with that shit too, right? If that stuff's even included, though, that's my point.
Right,
that's... like some of this stuff could even straight up be that just this is not covered by those kinds of contracts.
Right. Well, they're not covered on that side of contract, but if they were under contract, I mean, part of the thing is that complete any contracted work that you were obliged to do. It's more like starting new things that they want to make sure people aren't doing. It's very strange. Like
on the creative side,
yeah.
On the marketing side, there has been a very clear halt.
Oh yes,
to marketing,
yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Is you're seeing this marketing out for all of these other side projects, and it's weird because I think this stuff wouldn't normally float to the top because the marketing for the film projects and television would probably be the more, they're more likely to do an 80 like house tour of somebody's home who just had an album drop or a movie come out than they are to talk to somebody about the radio drama where they play the Riddler, right? Like that's not the kind of marketing that you see, except right now it kind of is. That seems to be the what we're digging into in that regard.
Well, I mean,
and so I'm curious where that stuff like falls.
Yeah, I mean, Rhode Island Comic Con is going on right now as we record this. I'm not attending because I was already iffy about conventions before the COVID-19 pandemic. Like I'd walk around with hand sanitizer. I never masked up before, but I always was. Because I mean, like when I went to the conventions before, like you come home with, they call it Paxpox, right? Which is gross, or the con flu. Like those are things like we knew that they were breeding grounds for disease, and then you add in this other one that seemed to not care where it was, and then with PAX East being a super spreader event and da-da-da-da-da. So I'm not going. But in addition to the fact that I'm not going to Comic-Con because of like health reasons, I don't think I would be attending Comic-Con right now because all that they can discuss is non-struck work. And like Ewan McGregor was there and he was talking about like his vacations. And I mean, I love that. I eat that the fuck up. Ewan McGregor, please tell me how you had difficulty getting through the security check at Heathrow. I'd listen to 7 hours of that.
Dude, I mean, the dude is so good at doing exactly that he has made television shows about that shit.
Right.
It's like
like there are people who are upset that they're like, oh, we can't talk to him about the latest show he was in where he replayed a role that he started in 1999. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. I want to hear him. I remember when I wound up at a Thomas Felton panel and everybody was asking him all questions about the wizard world that he was a part of. And I got up to the mic and I asked him like, what's something you want to talk about that's not that? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that because you got to be tired of it. What's your favorite role outside of that?
Yeah, he does so many other projects.
Because I know that I'm sitting here because of your work in this specific movie. And then we actually had a little dialogue about that specific movie. I don't want to hear about, like, I've always joked. We used to joke about getting Mark Hamill on Friends on a Couch. And literally, we would not talk about what Mark Hamill is known for that entire episode. I'd ask him about his sock choices. I love that. But for most other people, that's not what they want to hear these people talk about. I want to see the humanity in the gods. not gush over their godliness.
Yeah, I am really, really, like, I have no fucking clue what the next couple of weeks is going to bring in either direction, right? If this thing goes through this week and they want to get back to work, that's just as crazy to me at this point as them saying we're done for the year.
Yeah, I know. It is a it's a real catch-22. And I honestly, I'm excited to see what happens. But at this point, this deep in the game, I don't know where they go, honestly. All right. So we don't have tasks for this week, but I'd like to readdress the task from last week with Timothy by the Buoys, because I've learned something about the song that is very interesting to me. Do you know who wrote that particular song, Sejohn?
Timothy? I thought
yes,
that was the whole bit. They wrote it so that they could.
No, but do you know the songwriter? The Buoys were a band.
Right.
So do you know who was in the Buoys?
No, I don't. That was literally what we talked about last week. My exact words were we could find out Michael Jackson was in it for all I knew. So
well, I found out who was in it. Rupert Holmes.
Okay.
So if you like pina coladas,
yeah, that
and getting caught in the rain.
I mean, well, that explains kind of the yacht rocky feel I was kind of getting from it. You know, I talked a little bit about how it kind of reminded me of like Matt Berry and his style, and a lot of his style is like
modern
funk.
Yacht rock. Yeah.
Well, so it's like funk experimental filtered through yacht rock is kind of that sound that you get, right? When you talk about like some of the weirder shit that Barry does. And like that's exactly what I was getting off of Timothy, right? Is it sounded like it was this kind of like weird experimental poppy music, but like definitely filtered through this like the sound of being on a boat in the 80s, you know?
Yeah. I was like blown away when I'm like, Rupert Holmes, what are you talking about? And then, yeah. So that's just, I wanted to finish that one off, especially since we don't have any tasks set up for this week. That was just a thing to learn. And then think about like, so the guy who wrote Escape also wrote this song about cannibalism. That's cool.
Yeah, dudes. You know, both of those songs are uncomfortable, but for very different reasons. Congratulations.
You know what bothers me about Escape, the Pina Colada Song? His wife plays it totally the wrong fucking way. His wife is... All right, we're talking about Escape, the Pina Colada Song.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about it. So if you know the song at all, you probably only know the chorus, which is the reason why the song is titled Escape, open parentheses, the Pina Colada Song, close parentheses. And actually sometimes I've seen it as the Pina Colada Song, open parentheses, Escape, close parentheses. And I'm like, well, that's just taking artistic license there with that one. But people know the Pina Colada Song. There's been a bunch of... Sorry. You said wait. What?
No, I said right.
Right, okay.
Yes, people are very aware of this song that you're taking a lot of time to explain.
So if you know the chorus, if you like pina coladas, that one.
Yeah, right.
The verses are about a husband who is tired, a man who's tired of his lady. We don't know that they're married.
I cannot express to you how much I feel like you are explaining something everybody is very well aware of.
I mean, I think they're very well aware now, but what if you're the one person who doesn't understand what the song is about? What if you only listen?
Say you should go check out the lyrics of the song because it's about a dude that doesn't want to be with his wife, and so he puts out a personal ad, and that's where the whole chorus comes from.
He reads a personal ad that says if you like pina coladas and all of that. He's tired of his lady, so he goes to the personal ads and finds a personal ad that gets him horny and like, I need to respond to this.
Right.
So
he responds to it.
So the woman is the first offender. She's putting
weird way of putting it. Well, he's only looking at it though because he wants to be cheating on his wife.
Right.
Like
But she wants to be cheating on her husband to the fact that she's already placed a personal ad.
Yeah, and he's going to a personal ad. I'm not saying that she's like okay.
All right, well, chicken and the egg, I don't think this is. I think that the woman draws first blood.
I think you're making a game out of a thing that's not a game, is my point, Devin. It's not about who did what first. They are both in the same place. How do we know? We also don't know anything out of the context of this song. How do we know she didn't place this personal ad because he, like, beats her? We don't know that shit. Like, we don't know anything about this relationship outside of this. This is a weird amount of, like...
Well, you're the one who brings domestic abuse into it. I'm talking about based on the facts as presented by the song. Maybe the guy
the very first lyric
friend.
of the song. The very first lyric of the song is what, Devin? If you know it so well.
I was tired of my lady.
Boom, right there. It is immediately him admitting he is done with this relationship and moving on. That is where this whole thing starts. Now, how long has he been tired of his lady? Does she place this after when he has clearly been disconnected from her and disheartened? Like, it's real weird to turn this around and start blaming the woman in this situation.
I'm not blaming the
when
woman.
It literally is all from his side.
And
even he admits in the first line that it is his fault. He openly accepts responsibility for everything that is happening with that line.
We'd fallen into the same old dull routine. It takes two to fall into the same old dull routine, Sage.
You don't get to do that. You don't get to turn around and say, oh, maybe they're on equal footing. I was saying that.
I don't think they're on equal footing. I think that placing a personal ad is a larger offense than reading the personal ads.
Why?
Why? Because you gotta pay per letter. You gotta call the newspaper. You gotta make the payment. Like, there's more effort involved in picking up the newspaper and reading the personal ads.
But he reaches out. He goes so far as to reach out to this person and respond. He does literally the same thing without knowing that it's his wife. He commits the same offense.
We're talking
at the same
order
level
of, offense,
context
though.
and knowledge.
We're talking order of offense. I think.
Yes. But I'm saying that you don't know the order of events beyond this song, and that it is unfair.
I do know the order of
anything.
events beside this song. He got stuck in a mine with his friends Joe and Timothy and ate Timothy, and then he went back to his wife and was like, "Man, life is boring since I ate that dude. Maybe the personals will spice it up for me."
So that in that order of events, he commits cannibalism, and she says, "I don't think I want to be with you anymore."
Or, while he's in the mine, she places the fucking personal ad.
How do you know that? Now you're applying outside context that you don't have any evidence of. If I'm not allowed to do that, then you can't do that.
I thought that we had just thrown the rules out the window. All right. Regardless,
jumping really quick to trying to blame the woman in this situation in this song is a really weird reaction that you might need to
No. You read it as me trying to blame the woman. All I'm saying is that the first move is made by the person who places the personal ad.
You called it drawing first blood, Devin.
Because it's the first act. It's the first act of attrition. Regardless, the fact of the matter is, she places the ad, he answers the ad, and then he goes to the bar called O'Malley's, where they can plan their escape. His wife doesn't need to go up to him and be like, "Aw, it's you." She could totally play it off as just running into her husband, and now she knows that he's trying to cheat on her. And then you go to a lawyer, bam, you're going to get everything for the divorce.
So then, all of that, she makes the decision that they realize they're both in the same mental space and maybe need to have a conversation. Does the first mature thing anybody does in this song, and you're mad that she didn't gaslight him?
I'm upset. I mean, if she's
weird,
if things are as bad as she makes them seem by placing a personal ad.
Stuff. You are revealing some information today.
I guess on the one hand, it's like kind of romantic. Like, I've always thought of it as like she's disappointed that it's her husband, but she could play it off as like, now I'm taking everything because I know you were trying to cheat on me. I've entrapped you. But no, the fact that she doesn't go forward, you're not wrong. It's a very healthy thing that they have a discussion, and then it's like, oh, there's all this shit I never knew about you. Like, I didn't know you liked pina coladas. Honestly, where's the last place you got a pina colada, Sejohn? When's the last time you've had one? Ever?
A pina colada? There's a place called the Bayou out here that does like New Orleans style food, and it's the only good place I can get a muffalata. They're pretty decent pina colada.
Okay. I just feel like pina coladas are not as in the 2020s as they were in the 1970s.
You gotta go to, no, man, there's a whole tiki movement going on right now. You got, that's the thing is, So there's a couple of pop-up tiki bars out in SLC, and one of them got so popular that they finally got like a solid like place to just be all the time. Um, does everybody know what the term pop-up means? It means that they rent out a restaurant space for as long as they can afford it. Whether
Now
it's like
who's
a week or
explaining
2 weeks
something that
or
everybody
yeah.
knows?
No,
Sorry,
I
I'm
don't think
kidding.
this is a thing because I only just learned this week. Like, and I
Oh, okay,
realized
yeah,
that
that's
nobody
fair.
around me knew what it meant, and they kept using the term. And I finally was like, what qualifies something as a pop up versus just like we tried and it didn't work? And it's like it's this idea that you basically have you have all of the equipment yourself and you're good to go at a moment's notice. You just literally rent a space and
Yeah.
you open a restaurant for a night, a week, 2 weeks, and then it's gone. And like people just like live their whole lives doing this, and that's fucking insane to me. Um,
Not to be this guy showing my
but
East
that's
Coast
what these
privilege. That like this is where they started. So the fact that they're finally moving out west that's so cool to me.
so they started in LA. Like
Well, they
that's the
started
big
in New
thing is
York
like
and in LA. So the fact that they're moving
yeah.
inward is kind of cool.
It's not this isn't cool. This is a terrible sign of their times. It's because these guys can't afford to have actual restaurants despite the fact that they are literally some of the most successful examples of food like industry in the last 20 years. They are making more money than any other startup versions ever had in terms of percentages, and they can't afford to stay in a place. This is a nightmare.
No, no.
This is dystopian nightmare.
The only
fuel.
reason that they're profitable is because they don't have a place. They don't have that overhead that eats into their profits.
Yeah, no shit, Dev. Because rent's too high. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but
the
you're saying
overhead
that
shouldn't
there's
be
some of
so
the most
much to start a
profitable
restaurant.
argument
That's
that
not cool. These people live by their fucking like by credit card to credit card, paycheck to paycheck in this style without a solid establishment to actually work on. This is like not what they want to be doing. Anybody running a pop-up and having a good time means that they have some type of financial backing that other people don't, because a lot of the people that are doing this don't want to be in this situation.
Oh, okay.
You talk to anybody that runs these things and this is not a fun conversation.
But you said that it's one of the most profitable things. It has these huge profit margins, and the reason why is...
No.
Oh, okay.
Has huge profit margins to the point where you're not gonna like get kicked out onto the street. The huge profit margins does not mean take home cash. Huge profit margins means we can afford to live another day. Most people starting restaurants now can't keep them going for more than like a month.
Yeah, because the overhead is just, it kills you. So if you can open for one night and have like a crazy good night, I guess you're right though. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're making profits and having a huge take home number. Just because you open up the
you're barely making enough to make it, and then you hit a point where you're like, well, shit, we're gonna have to try open it up again because we're about to run out of cash to pay for the cancer meds or whatever. Like, it's like not a good situation for these people at all.
Yeah.
Like,
and that laugh is out of nervousness, not anything else. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not laughing at it is very dystopian. I guess when you apply it like that, I'm thinking of the fact that like, oh, we're made record profits, and it's like, yeah, because tomorrow you just put all this stuff into storage again. You don't have a space that you're paying like $10K a month for.
The concept of the pop-up is one of those things that you'll hear a lot of like boomers like talk about and look at and like turn their nose up at because of exactly everything you're saying. They're making all of this money. They don't even have to hold on to a place. They're not leaving a legacy, all of this bullshit. And they're just like boo on them. What they don't realize is the reason they're doing that is because these people if they could, they would have a place that was their own, that they didn't have to open and then clear all of their shit out of 3 days later, that they didn't have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning on one day and just be awake for 4 days straight. Like, that's not the ideal situation for these people, right? And like, so I don't even know how we got here, but like pop-up shops were like
where to get a pina colada is how we got here.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of pop-up bars and stuff that try their hand out here, and the tiki movement was in the whole like pop-up like kind of realm for a while out here, but now we've got a couple that are actually going into just like solid places that they're just going to be, and I'm really hoping at least one of them keeps going because like they're awesome places, but it is like $20 for a drink because you're getting these huge fucking drinks full of fruit, and they're usually meant for like 3 people, right? Like, you know, especially if you're getting scorpion bowls and shit like that.
Yeah.
But the tiki drinks are making a comeback right now.
I was unaware. I feel foolish. Like, I'm not really going out to bars, if I'm going to be completely honest. So, I mean, there's a reason why I wouldn't necessarily be aware of this rising movement. But I guess the way I looked at pop-up bars is they had figured out that, like, the most expensive part of owning a restaurant is having to pay for the space. I thought that they had found a way to circumvent that most expensive part.
Well, they have, but
But
you're looking at it at the micro level. The
yeah,
macro level is it shouldn't be that expensive for these people. If they have a successful product and a successful business and they potentially want to elevate, the area, the community, their employee, like if they are in that position, then there should not be a barrier to entry like you can't afford an actual restaurant space. Like I'm sure there are one or two people that love the pop-up life because they're fucking maniacs and like the pressure and the change and the all of that stuff appeals to them. But the reason this concept exists is what you're talking about. But that's not a good thing,
but it's
right?
not. But it's like, but it's not
That's
as
like
good. The
so
good
like yeah,
reason. Yeah,
it's great that they figured out how to jank this fucked up system. But how about we fix the system so that people don't have to jank it if they don't want to, right?
that's good. Yeah. Okay. So you bring up an excellent point there. I do apologize. I also now know that you're real. If that's any consolation, you definitely crafted that argument in real time. There's no way AI is there yet, and there's no way that you could have pre-recorded and we have the discussion that we just had. So this was good. This was good. You've passed the test, the pop-up test.
The Turing test.
Oh, Sejohn, I mean, what about food trucks, right? Like that, is that like the bridge between? Or is a food truck further along than a pop-up? Like if we're talking like Pokemon evolutions?
No, because delivery food has been a thing
Forever.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, like the food trucks are not actually like a new invention, right? It's just something that people have kind of discovered they can make good food on. It's more that they've not classed them up, but like there's a lot more legitimacy to food trucks now than there were for a long time. But like guys driving around selling food has been a thing as long as there's been events to sell food at. Like I mean, like you could go back to the Greeks and probably further, right?
Right. I guess I went to this awesome little diner earlier this year called Deegs. And I mean, I don't know if I sent you photos of it, but I got like legitimate chicken and waffles there that were some of the best food that I've ever eaten. And now the restaurant itself has closed down to only be a food truck. And I don't know if that's an evolution or a de-evolution in that.
I mean, it depends on what they want to do with what they're doing. A lot of that comes down to, I mean, and the same thing goes for the whole pop-up movement. It comes down to the concept that the owner, chef, whoever that may be, that's creating this baby, like, what is it that they want to achieve, right? The thing about the food truck stuff that's really awesome is the ability to change location. If location is not key, if you're not like, I want to go back to my old neighborhood and make sure everybody gets fed, if that's not your point, if your whole thing is like you want to bring a certain type of food to the masses or whatever like that, then a food truck is a fantastic option. And again, this is something that's existed forever. Like making food, putting it onto a truck and selling it throughout the day has existed for it's a tale as old as time. We used to go and get hamburgers off of a food truck at 2 o'clock in the morning in Providence, famously. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I think we could talk about them. I don't think their struck work.
I can't think of their names. That's why it starts with an H. I remember that much. They're not
Something
around
Brothers,
anymore,
right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still around or not. I gotta look this place up now.
No, I was under the impression that they didn't make it through the pandemic. That they've been closed for about 5 years now. But maybe I'm wrong, and that'd be great to find out.
Haven
But yeah,
Brothers.
but like, what is it?
Haven Brothers.
Haven Brothers, right? Yeah, Haven Brothers burgers were like famous in Rhode Island,
Those
like
were
for
magical.
as long as we were growing up. Right. I mean, like, so like the food truck has potential, and again, there's been a legitimacy brought back to it over the last 15 years or so that I think should have always been there. Like, let me be key. I've always loved a good food truck. Like, I mean, growing up, going to baseball games and stuff like that of all types, everything from little league to double A games and stuff like that. Like I just like I would never turn my nose up at going to a taco truck or anything like that to like grab some food. You go to festivals and shit like that, and that's always what's there. Love me some fair food, right? Yeah. So like I think that the legitimacy should have always been there, but I feel like there's really been a move in the chef culture, at least in the food culture, to really kind of prop them back up in a way that they should have always been.
Yeah, I think so. Haven Brothers looks like it's still around. Oh, sorry, I got all the answers here. That they're now, you book them like a catering event.
Okay,
they're now Haven Brothers Mobile. Yeah.
Yeah, they used to pull up right. So for anybody that's never been to Providence, the bus depot where all
What's
the
that?
buses in Rhode
Kennedy.
Island all go through. Kennedy,
Kennedy
right?
Plaza.
Yeah, Kennedy Plaza is right outside of all of the like state buildings, and there's a little bit of RISD over there. Some of the nicer restaurants are all right in that area, right? So Haven Brothers Burgers used to pull up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and open their doors on this like food truck every night, and guys getting out of the bars, coming out of, from RISD, getting off of the bus from work and shit like that. It was just the best. It was the best location in the fucking world, and it was like one of those things that we didn't do often, but every now and then we'd be at a hockey game or we'd go out to a midnight movie and we'd hit up Haven Brothers on the way home, and that was always a treat because like it wasn't always there, right? And like that experience is so magical and so unique to what they were doing. You couldn't do that with just a regular restaurant, right?
Right. And God, murder burgers? Like that was what they called their burger with a fried egg on top.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so like to go back to the pop-up stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like I said, there's probably some madman out there that just loves that lifestyle. And I think that the idea of renting a space to do this kind of thing, to try this, has always been a thing in LA and New York. But again, it just kind of caught on in a bigger way, to the point where like now people realize not only could they do it because they wanted to try something, right? Like a test kitchen, test restaurant, but also as you so rightly pointed out, the frugality of it nowadays. Things have also gotten so fucking crazy and out of hand that this thing that was once this beautiful thing that artistic people did just to give something a try has now become this like this like excuse for people to not like to not even consider getting a restaurant, which doesn't help anything in the long run, because the way the whole system fucking works, people don't want to buy into it, which somehow seems to make prices go up, which seems to make people not want to buy into it, which seems to make prices go up.
Yeah. As it becomes more niche, the cost goes up because there's less
Right.
people who are participating in it. I mean, it also boils down to the restaurants that are restaurants still have dramatically changed their hours. They're opening later and
that's
they're
also a
closing
thing, right?
earlier because there's that time where like we're just open and nobody's coming in, and that is us throwing money into a fire.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, the restaurant stuff is nuts. I mean, we talked about this a little bit. I don't remember if it was on air or not last week, but when we were sitting in a restaurant that had been there for 90 years, and like how rare that is, right? That just isn't.
Not only
I can't imagine. I can't imagine opening up a restaurant in 2023 and even fathoming it being open in 90 years. Not. I can't imagine. I
5
can't even
years.
fathom keeping it open for 5.
Yeah, like 5 years seems to be like the half-life for a restaurant now. And that's crazy. I mean, what, the last Fuddrucker, there's only going to be one Fuddruckers in Massachusetts anymore because the one in Saugus, Mass closed. And then I think two Saugus, Mass, and it makes me sad because like the Hilltop Steakhouse was in Saugus, Mass. And people have been comparing, we ate at Twin Oaks last week. We talked about it on last week's episode if you want to hear our like full experience. Though I don't think we got to talk about probably the worst rendition of Happy Birthday we have ever heard, and getting to hear it 3 times.
I couldn't wrap my head around it enough to talk about it, and the fact that we heard it 3 times was nuts.
Yeah, but people compared the Hilltop to Twin Oaks, and I think about like what is happening in Saugus, Massachusetts, where it used to be like kind of this big sort of tourist destination in Massachusetts, and it's closing down so much that like the Fuddruckers is now going. Like like there's still going to be the one in Reading,
When's the
Mass.
last time you went to a Ponderosa?
Oh God, Ponderosa, when they closed here, but that was back when we were in college.
Right,
like 2005,
right?
they
Like
closed
restaurants
the
like that
Ponderosa.
just don't exist anymore. But you watch like movies and TV shows and shit, and they make jokes about like, oh, we're all going down to the Ponderosa together. It's just like, man, I know you said that because it was supposed to be the bad thing, but I wish we could all go to the Ponderosa still.
Yeah, like it's not
I
an all
miss
the
that
time
shit.
thing, but like the
No,
memories of the Ponderosa Steakhouse. You know what? I miss the Ground Round.
Oh yeah, the ground round. I used to get really good plastic cups, like sippy cups. from
Yup,
there. Like
that-
you get like the kid cups. Yeah.
They had really good stuff there. I remember seeing a certain movie starring a certain actor, and then afterwards we went to the Ground Round. And honestly, if we hadn't go to the Ground Round, I don't know if I would remember that movie as well as I do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, they just don't. They don't
make
do
them
that
like they
many
used to,
shit
which is
anymore.
a shame. All right, we're almost 40 minutes in, so it's time.
Dude, speaking of which, no wait.
Oh,
speaking
okay.
of which, we got to give an update on an old friend of the show that has gone through some shit. I don't think we've talked about how they're uploading Sir Charles Entertainment Cheese. They're uploading his consciousness, Devin. They're putting him into the Matrix.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I'm ready for that whole
Yeah,
like
well,
what they're
we'll have
doing
to
with the
wait and see
automatronic.
exactly.
What
Yeah, it's
happens?
only an announced change. It's
Yeah.
only an announced change, so we'll have to see what it's like when it actually goes through. But the proposal currently is that they're going to be taking all animatronics out of Chuck E. Cheese going forward and replacing them all with like more digital screens and
Yeah.
larger digital representations. I'm imagining that we may see one or two in certain areas of this country that attempt a hologram or two, right? Like I think that
Yeah.
we might see a lot of that sort of shit happening. It's gonna get wild. But there is gonna be one that has one set of animatronics left because of some sweet kid in Swansea, Mass, was like started like an online petition to save the animatronics, and they were like, all right, we'll keep one. So there's gonna be one set of them still out in their I
Northern
believe they said
California, right?
L.A., Northern
Yeah.
California,
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah,
Somewhere in
yeah. So they're
California, they're gonna have it. It's gonna almost be like a museum too.
yeah,
Charles
right.
Entertainment Cheese. So
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought considering our relationship with the man, I thought it was only fair that we update everybody on what's happening with him.
yeah, that's that. My bigger thing was being reminded of the fact that because it was too expensive to ship out the animatronics, whenever they took them away from the pizza places, the Chuck E. Cheese's, they didn't want them to ship them back, and they didn't want them to fall into the wrong hands. So what they literally asked the restaurants to do was videotape their employees destroying them.
Yeah. It's kind of fucked up. Much like a lot of the stuff on the periphery that leads to a bunch of shit like Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's real weird. But it's why you get so much shit about like people finding like half like animatronics in like dumps and stuff, and
Yeah.
like fixing up because of exactly that. Because they never got shipped back to a single location, they could be found anywhere, right? Like it truly is like a treasure hunt trying to find that stuff. The guys that collect that stuff are man, they're wild. They are dedicated folks. Though.
All right. So now that we're 40 minutes in, Sejohn, I got a Fanta Phantom. The zero sugar mystery called Fanta. Is going to expire in 8 days. I'm going to open it up and try it on the show right now.
Excellent.
Oh, it smells good from the beginning. It's like black soda. Like it's not white the way that the Voodoo is.
Yeah,
I'm a little nervous about this.
Well, remember, Coke has been doing their whole mystery, like like the flavors, the Dream Vision that they did. They just released like a Y3K, I think, and so like
that's supposed to taste like Future, and it was pretty okay, but I don't really know what the Future tastes like.
But just in terms of like, Coke is actually the only ones out there taking like a weird stand against doing white mystery flavor. Like if they're gonna have a weird flavor, they want it to look like Coke. Sorry, go ahead.
This Fanta's delicious. I could not tell you what this flavor is. Do people know? Like, if I Google it, will it tell me? Is it blackberry? I think it's blackberry.
Yeah. So there's a blackberry element. I believe that it's something along the lines of like blackberry pineapple or something. Let me verify.
It's so
blackberry
good.
is definitely the main.
Fanta
was definitely the main one.
Mystery flavor. It's super tasty. I think it's really crazy that they're going to be expiring in 8 days. Like November 13th, 23 is the expiration date. And they were supposed to have been bottled for Halloween, which, as I've just found out, because I drank a bunch of fermented Sunkist berry lemonade that was bottled in June, they only have about an 18-month cycle before they technically have gone bad. So this person saying that it tastes like chalky Flintstone vitamins, but
I'm seeing a lot of blackberry orange, like blackberry blood orange, blackberry orange.
Yeah, if it was blood orange forward in the beginning, I will definitely admit that. It's delicious.
Yeah, so it seems like it's like a blackberry citrus is the big one, which is leading a lot of people to candies. Like a lot of people are assuming things like Sour Patch Kids or Sweet Tarts, but I think that I don't think when I tasted it, like there's like a, you know how there's a difference between real banana and banana flavoring? It's the same thing with like, there's a big difference between we want this to taste like candy blackberry and just regular blackberry. It's all chemical shit, but you know.
Well, it's tasty regardless. I mean, is it chemically because it's zero sugar? Like, I've started to come to terms with zero sugar because I have a lot of friends who all they have at their houses are zero sugar soda. So, like, if I want soda at their house and not just water, I'm gonna buck up Buttercup and enjoy the zero sugar.
Maybe that might be it as well. For me, whenever I taste like lemon or lime, since there's such prolific flavors in fake candy, my brain always wants to associate it with that right away, and I have to like remind myself sometimes that that may not be what they're going for, right?
I have to tell you, I'm looking at the ingredients on this. I haven't gotten to sucralose is the fourth to last ingredient. That makes me happy that it's not so sugar forward as most other sodas. I'm just gonna be that guy.
You're talking about your zero sugar soda that you got is not gonna be the sweetener forward that you thought.
Well, no, not just sweetener forward, like zero sugar, but sucralose could still be like the second ingredient. But it's so near the end. Like I'm looking at the ingredients for the Voodoo. I have a little shrine to all these mystery sodas. And this one is carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup. Like, that's the second ingredient in the Mountain Dew. Excuse me.
There's a lot of people worried because it made their poop green. Just be ready for that.
Be ready for green poop? Okay. I mean, it's weird that all food dyes make you poop green. That's not true. Red one doesn't. Red one makes people think they're dying. Remember that with Frankenberry? That's why Frankenberry was taken off the shelves for so long because people thought they were dying.
This is when we were in college, and this is something that stuck with me straight through going through my first couple years of grad school too. There's just those nights, where you're all up to something. And you end up with very specifically like a Kroger cake or Kroger cookies, right? Like those, like any supermarket really, but Kroger is what we had, and I've come to find out that this is apparently like a very special thing in this country. Like people that talk about like the Kroger whip cakes and things like that. But the dyes that they use in that shit, and Walmart I think is a really prolific like one that is also super guilty of this. Whatever dyes they put in that shit would fuck with your stomach so bad in so many different ways. And there would be conversations. And again, as I said, this stuck with me past college with our group, through me living out on my own, not in college, to me going back to grad school with yet another group of people. Like, just listen. Always, those conversations always revolved around, though, anything that we ate that had to do with the fucking, like, grocery store counter food.
Yeah, I remember I was a mall rat. I don't know if you ever did that, but like I for real just hung out at the mall on Friday nights
all the time.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you probably went to Providence, right? We went to the Warwick Mall, and my crew.
And Providence wasn't built until I was halfway through high school, I think, or like they started my first year of high school.
I think like 1999. I think stuff,
yeah. Yeah, so in junior high and stuff, like we were going down to Warwick Mall. Rhode Island Mall was the other one, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, Rhode Island Mall was not the fun mall to hang out at. I have plenty of good Rhode Island Mall like stories. My best one is probably the release of Halo 2.
Rhode Island Mall was the one that had Suncoast Video, wasn't it?
They didn't have Suncoast. They had one of the video stores, but we never had a Suncoast in Rhode Island. The nearest Suncoast was in Emerald Square Mall. What the heck was the name? MC Goody, maybe? Is that the name of the
Sam Goody? You
Sam
mean?
Goody, yeah. Sam Goody was the one that was in the Rhode Island Mall.
Yeah, I must be thinking of the Emerald Square Mall then,
yeah.
Because I am thinking very specifically we would go to the Suncoast Video because they would have, in addition to videos, they would also have CDs and stuff, and we would spend just hours in there, just like wandering around, and basically it was like being in our own like high fidelity.
Yeah, no, we would do
the book,
that.
Not the movie. I'm not referencing the movie because we can't reference the movie. I'm referencing the book.
You could reference the book or the stage show, right?
There we go. Yep. Yeah. See.
But no, I remember we would go hang out there, and it was Halloween time, right? Like maybe why I'm thinking about it. Also, the color of the Fanta and the fact that you're like you might have green stool. It was definitely near Halloween time, and the Burger King was kind of the place in the food court to eat at the Warwick Mall at the time. It's been built up now, but the Burger King was kind of the best option, and they had like a black Slurpee slushy-esque drink for sale, yeah. And I got it, and I drank like 2 of them while we were hanging out at the mall, and then I got home and I had that, and I'm just like, oh my God, what did I eat that got this? Because like it was dark black. Why would that make my stool bright green? But it's just the part of the dye you cannot digest.
Yeah, it's what filters through you, man.
Yeah. Oh, this was fun. We should probably talk about something other than poop jokes and such. Hey, WarioWare Move It came out. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I was curious if you were going to talk about the whole game you completed this week. Yeah.
The whole game that we completed in about an hour.
Oh,
Which
really?
is, yeah. So that's like the real thing. So first off, WarioWare Move It, I was a little nervous about because I'm not the biggest fan of smooth moves. I love the WarioWare series. Some of my best experiences are playing WarioWare games. I will just put that right on the table. But
I like Game and Wario, and I think that makes me the odd man out.
Game and Wario, literally the only Wario I've never played. I'll be honest with that because I had gotten rid of my Wii U by the time. It was really fun
and had a bunch of like a bunch of like mini games that were not like micro games in it and stuff. It was a good package. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. But I found that is not the game to talk about with WarioWare fans, apparently.
No. If you want to talk about WarioWare, the best ones to talk about is WarioWare, the first one. Touched and Twisted have their fans, but they also have some detractors because of the gimmicky nature of it.
Right, and so to be clear, what the gimmick is those were the Game Boy ones that used the odometer thing, right?
That's Twisted. Twisted had like a speed sensor in it. Like it's not technically an odometer. It's almost like a gyroscope, but it's not necessarily a gyroscope.
I have no idea how that magic always works, but it was but you would turn your Game Boy in order to do the games, right? Like
so the problem with that is that it was specifically designed for the first iteration of the Game Boy Advance, so the horizontal one, because it was meant to be at the top so that when you rotated it, it'd rotate properly. So then but it didn't release till like the end of the Game Boy Advance. Both the Advance SP and Micro had come out, and because both of them had them slot into the bottom, you could play it, but like when it wanted you to move right, you'd have to move left, and you just had to kind of calibrate your brain to it properly.
Weird.
Yeah, it was a really strange thing. But it was weird that they and that's because it had released in Japan when the only game in town was the full horizontal Game Boy Advance original. And then they brought it over because when they brought over WarioWare Mega Micro Games Inc., like, no, that's the Game Boy, that's the GameCube one. Well, just the first WarioWare, it hit so big that they put together the touched one for the DS. And that one's good, but you ruin your screen. Like, it is a game that will ruin your touch screen. And then Twisted came along, and it's like, oh, this is great, but it's not compatible with either of the backlit models of your Game Boy Advance.
Right.
So it's like, eh. So then Smooth Moves comes along on the Wii, and it's excellent for most people. I don't really like it because I don't really like motion capture games.
Motion control, yeah.
Yeah, motion control games.
I remember that one being really fun just in terms of like the silliness. Like it really leaned into the motion control, like making you look really goofy IRL, and I really appreciated that. And I think that's something that Nintendo really excelled at during the Wii time, like in a way that I don't think anybody ever has with the motion control stuff past them. Is they didn't just consider what was happening on screen and in game, but also what was happening in real life. And so, like, the silliness translates so well, and it's why the Just Dance series, which got started on the Wii, literally started as, I think, a mini game in Raymond's Raving Rabbits, right? Like, all of that. But, like, the Just Dance series, one of the most prolific motion-based games, it got its start on the Wii because it was like, well, we can show them this on screen, but just imagine how silly they'll look to their family and friends outside. And it becomes this awesome party game to play, even though it really is kind of just one or two people up dancing at a time, right? Like, the Wii was phenomenal for that kind of stuff, and the right people that thought about that sort of thing, that shit always hit big.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. I'm pretty sure Just Dance 2023 actually had a Wii release. Like I'm going through it.
I mean, famously, they were the last.
They were the last Wii releasing games. No, so I think it was 2022 that was the last one. I'm just going through the Wikipedia right now. Yep.
There was like one pressing company out there still pressing Wii games for them, and only them apparently.
No, so not 22. So I guess 21 must have been it. I know that it was into the 2020s. So like, yeah, because Just Dance was that prolific type of thing. And then after Smooth Moves, they did D.I.Y. on the DS, which is fun, kinda. Like, there are definitely new, unique WarioWare games, but it was
What's the
really
hook to
more
that one?
about creating your own mini games, micro
There it is.
games. Was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Um,
So the make your own is the hook on that one, right?
yeah, that's why it's DIY, and you were supposed to be able to upload them and share them with friends, and it's in a lot of ways like a predecessor to something like Mario Maker, in terms of like we've realized these are the tools that you need, but let's start off with 5-second games that people can make. And
Yeah,
it's
right.
interesting. It's like visual coding and things like that. I had fun with it. And then the follow up to that was Game and Wario, which you already
Right, and
talked about.
and its whole thing, like the hook for that one is how it utilized the Wii U secondary screen, right? There'd
Right.
be things that you would do on the secondary screen that would affect the front screen, and friends could get involved in all sorts of silly shit. And then that's where the whole mini game stuff comes from, right? Like one of the favorite ones we used to play. There was like this like islands mini game where you would just like flick these little Franck dudes onto the like platforms and score points, and there was physics based stuff going on because they'd land on like platforms in water and things like that. It was really cool, like the ways in which it used the system. And the problem is that it's so utilized, that two screen system, that I don't know how they could recreate that, because the Switch doesn't really do two screens as much as it can connect to your TV. It still is just one screen when it does, right? So I don't know. Maybe if they could ever figure out a way to do it with like dual switch, like if there's two switches in the house, but that's such a limited use capability that why would they make a game like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why a lot of the Wii U games that haven't gotten remasters for the Switch is the problem, is it bought so hard into the gamepad of it all. And
One of the
yeah.
weird ones that did really well with that, though, one of the earliest releases on the Wii U has transferred over Zombie U, that I think now is just called Zombie when it's on other systems. And remember, like the whole bit on that one was that while you were looking in your pack, you had to hold up your mini screen in front of your big screen, and then you could see what was in your pack on your mini screen, but you were still in real time. On the big screen, so you could possibly be getting attacked on the big screen, but your eyes were focused on it. Was like this really cool mechanic. And when they announced that they were going to be transferring that to other systems, I was really like, you're going to lose that whole kind of aspect of you focusing on the dual stuff. But they do a really good job just doing some fancy camera work, and still having some stuff happen to you in that.
Yeah,
On the,
I mean that's kind of just building off of like Dark Souls and things like that, where like you can't really pause. There's no such thing as pause. You can go into your menu, but
and it was also this really cool thing of like,
yeah, no, and
as
you had
long
to
as it is, as long as this little screen is literally in your vision, in your way of looking at the big screen, only then can you actually look and see what's on your map or in your backpack and that kind of stuff. It was a really cool, unique way to use that system. And again, I was really surprised that they figured out a way around that when they brought it to other places.
yeah. All right, so then Game Wario. Also, I mean, I skipped. It is Mega Micro Games is the first one with the S is a question, is a $sign. On GameCube, it's Mega Party Games, which is, you talk about the mini games. That's where those really started as an option, because the way that you competed was your wins in the micro games gave you like moves in the bigger mini game that you'd be playing against other people. That game I wish they would bring back for the Switch. Specifically that game, 4-player crazy action, and just all of the regular Wario. I want regular WarioWare mini games. Now, micro games. Now, I say that, 2018 they come out with WarioWare Gold, that's another one that they should bring back to the Switch, honestly. WarioWare Gold was perfection. It was literally... What?
What system was that one on?
That was on 3DS.
That was a 3D. Okay, yeah, that was a handheld though.
It was a handheld one, and the reason why is that it is 300 games, and it is all of the games from Mega Micro Games, all the games from Touched, and all the games from Twisted, because the 3DS could do all of that. Right. So that game was a blast. That like, and I'd love to play that again. I mean, a Switch could do all of that too in handheld mode. Or it could even do it attached to the TV with the gyros and the Pro Controller, or just on the Joy-Cons. Like that, I mean, but we're not WarioWare starving in any way, shape, or form. Because that comes out in 2018. 3 years later, 2020, we have WarioWare Get It Together, which is an interesting title. It's very the micro games, but the characters, the lore of WarioWare, right? And again, maybe I'm explaining something that everybody knows, but it is Wario is trying to trick his friends into making games for him so that he can sell them for huge profit.
Yeah, I mean every Wario-based game is about him trying to get rich in the end, for something, right? And the WarioWare games, very specifically, the reason that it's called WarioWare, right, is that he's starting companies or making systems or whatever, in whatever storyline. The end goal is always to get his friends to make games for him. Yeah,
Yeah, which is interesting. And then he reaps the rewards, and then like they are really the cast of characters in WarioWare. It's so crazy that Nintendo has a cast of like 20 people who just exist.
And they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
The WarioWare characters are some of are in terms of weird underground franchises that don't get enough like spotlight time. Like WarioWare is probably number one for me. Tingle is up there too. The Tingle games are fucking amazing. But that's a different show.
That's a different episode. I can't go down the path right now.
But yeah, no, like the WarioWare stuff, and I mean like you pointed out, like this is not a series that only gets revisited every now and like they do one for every system.
Yeah.
Inevitably a Wario game comes out and people know that and they get excited and they buy it. Like people love Wario games. It's just it's interesting that you're not wrong. They do seem to then just kind of go under the surface for a little bit in between.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also skipping Snapped, which was the DSi version of the game. I've never played WarioWare Snapped. I don't even know what that is. And D.I.Y had a showcase on WiiWare. So you could send your games to your Wii to play on the big screen. Which is cool. So Get It Together, all of his friends, they get sucked into the game. So they basically...
That's the new one, right?
Get It Together is the 2021 one.
Oh, 2021.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. So they get sucked in and they have to play the games, like the little micro games. It's sort of like Tron, right? Yeah. Where they have to deal with the game. It's cool. It's an interesting thing.
But I mean, like you're talking about a cast of characters that openly has like an alien in it, right? It has a couple of different anime style like joke characters, right? Like you have like the little girl with like it has like good robot abilities and shit like that. I mean, for some reason there's a disco dancer that is like perhaps my favorite character.
I think he's Wario's second best friend. I think Wario's best friend is Mona. And like in a lot of ways I wonder what their relationship is. Like I've never really gone down that, but like she really seems to like Wario. And I don't hate that. But Jimmy, the disco dancer, he's big deal too, and we've met his entire extended family. Like there's so much. Everybody like 9-Volt was always my favorite of the characters because he does the retro games, so it's like slightly off Nintendo games. Like it'll be like Stomp Goomba, but it will be Wario instead of Mario in regular Super Mario Brothers. I loved him. And then when they introduced his best friend, 18-Volt, I'm like, I don't know where you go from here. And now...
what's 5-Volt's...
5-Volt is his mom. 5-Volt is 9-Volt's mom. And now there's also 13-Amp. Who's like another lady that they hang out with who's like more about retro music. Like, it's this whole crazy thing.
Did you talk about Dr. Krygor yet?
No, I haven't talked about Krygor or Penny or the robot Mike. Like, there's so many characters. So, Get It Together, you get to play as all of them. Gold introduced a character named Lulu, who is kind of like the mini-me of Wario. Like, it's a little girl version of Wario who's just as, like, avaricious and everything.
Yeah, right.
She's fantastic. I love Lulu. So there's all this fun stuff. So then WarioWare Move It is announced, and I'm excited because it's WarioWare, and I do love my time with WarioWare, but it's another like motion control one. And Smooth Moves, as much as I played through it, I did go through and find that I do have a completed save file on my Wii. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But then I look at it, and it's only $50. And I know that seems like crazy to be like only $50, but we're like most releases now are $70. A $50 game, like that, there's an appeal there. And then I got to think, how much am I going to play this game? And honestly, $50 for an hour-long experience that's I'm fine with that, right?
Well,
Especially
so one of the big appeals with Wario games is replayability, and specifically like getting together with like friends and to do that sort of thing. I mean, is that there? Because if that's there, then an hour-long experience is fine if I could do it 1,000 times, right?
Yeah. So the story mode we did it co-op, me and Dale, my sister. She's like, "I'll watch you make an idiot of yourself." And then when we turned it on, it's like story 1 or 2 players. She ran and got her Joy-Cons, plugged them in, and it's like, "All right, we're going through WarioWare together. Let's just do it."
Mm-hmm.
And we did it. We played through everything 2-player. Took about an hour. We failed a bunch of times, but the game has a saving stance, sort of like saving throw mechanic, where you have to hold a stance that is ridiculous, and if you can hold
to bring yourself back to life.
bring yourself
Dad
back to
for
life. So that, and then there's also a party mode that can be played up to 4 people.
Awesome.
So like, I would like to try that as well. And it's just, I had such a good time with it, and I didn't expect to have a good time with it. Some of it is the issues of, motion control gaming. The game very much wants you to, and you very much should, have the little tethers on the Joy-Cons. The whole story behind WarioWare Move It is Wario went to Garlic Burger and bought 50 garlic burgers. So when it came time to their big, like, win a grand prize island vacation, he was the only person who had any, like, entries. So he won the grand prize, yes. Which
as
was
garlic burgers are known to do to give out these free vacations. Yep.
It's not even like gaslighting or like we're targeting Wario. It's literally, it's our big promotion, and if you're the grand prize winner, you and 20 of your friends get to go on a fabulous island vacation to Cares Away Island. And the guy, like, working at garlic burgers crying because nobody's ordered. Then Wario pulls up at his bike. He's like, "I'll take a 50 of garlic burgers, please." And they're like, "You win!" Because you're the only person who ate garlic
So
burger.
wait a minute. Is he only there for the garlic burger? Like, was he even aware that
He's
there's
not
a prize
even aware
to win?
of the contest. He rolls up, picking his nose. Wah! Orders the garlic burger, wins the prize. He's like, "Great, a vacation." And then he's like, "And 20 of your friends." He's like, "That seems more like a punishment." But he takes
so
all
much about this retelling is what I needed today. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. But he goes on the vacation with everybody, and when they arrive to the Cares Away Island, they're given form stones that are literally just Joy-Cons, but in world they are rocks that are shaped like the Joy-Cons, and they even have the little tether. And
nice.
And so as you play through the game, the voice from above comes in to tell you of the different forms that can be held with the form stone, like Choo Choo, which is you hold them at your sides like you're a choo-choo train, or Knight, where you hold them above each other. And then there's one thing, like the seventh form you learn about is drop form, which is, you'll see a little icon before the micro game, and they want you to literally drop the Joy-Cons. So like, okay. Thank you.
Make sure you got that nice and tight.
So Dale and I wish we'd streamed it, because we would have probably the fastest clear of the story mode in strapless category, because we had to find all sorts of different ways to drop them and not damage them. And then, like, later on, you get the pounce form, which is have them still attached to your wrist by the tethers, but place them down in front of you. So that, like, then you have to be like a cat and pounce on them. And that form is written to be, like, down on the ground. And then, like, the voice from above is interrupted and goes, "Yeah, you don't need to be on the floor. Like, get a small table and put that in front of you." So then that changed everything, because then we got pillows, so we could drop them on the pillows on the small table and also use it for the pounce form. And we just had a blast playing through the game. And then, like, the final whole thing, spoilers for WarioWare Move It, you have to dance because stealing from Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Wario, though he does it accidentally, turns himself into a volcano, and the elder of the island's like, the only way to quiet the volcano is to dance. So
Fantastic.
the final stage is doing Wario versions of a lot of the games that you've played throughout the thing. It's multi-form, so any of the forms can come up, which, like, that really throws you a little bit, where the multi-form of it all. Not like it's difficult or anything, or like you're not going to be prepared for it.
So when you say the form of the thing, what does that mean?
So your forms are like the Choo Choo, right? So the first Wario set of games, the only form you'll use is Choo Choo. Then when you get to the next one, which I believe is Mona, her games are either the Knight, where you stack them on top of each other, your dominant hand on top, and you do tell it if you're left-handed or right-handed, because I know I have some left-handed friends on the show actually recording with me right now who might need to understand that. Or the Sky Stretch, which you hold them out above you like you're doing a wave with the buttons facing outwards. And like that's the game I hate the most in WarioWare is Pick the Nose. That's to pick the nose. So like you need to angle your arms properly so that your hands go up the nose. I'm doing it right now.
Awesome.
But then there's like scale form. But as you're playing through, each character that you choose has their forms that they're associated with. So like Mona is the Knight and Sky Stretch. And then like Cricket and Mantis, they have a lot of like karate style stances where like you're like the warrior or Big Cheese, which is kind of just like superhero pose. So you go that, but like, so you understand like, all right, so I'm going to do some Cricket and Mantis stuff. I'm going to only have to use their forms while I'm playing these type of games. And then like all good WarioWares, you have the remix stages. And those remix stages, the remix 1 is just all the people you've played games up to that point. So it's only like 8 sort of forms that you'll have to take in order to play the games. And then the remix 2, it's the other like 8 people that you've played as and done their games. And then when you get to the final one where Wario's the volcano, it can literally be any of the forms that the game has introduced to you. And then there's the other wrinkle is the emblem system, which like drop is an emblem that will show up before the game, so you know to let them go. There's also the button emblem, which means like, yeah, you're going to be in the form, but you also have to interact with buttons on the Joy-Con. And that can be difficult because, you know, like what buttons is it going to be? Like there's one, it's, the gift giver, which is you lay your palms out and you have the Joy-Con just in it. That one, you have to answer a cell phone that rings. So you have to hit the right corresponding button for like where the answer button shows up. Like it's nuts. It's wild what they have you doing and what the fucking Joy-Cons are capable of in terms of just like spatial understanding. Because there's handheld mode, which has you drop your off. Well, it has your off Joy-Con, and then hold up the one that has the IR sensor, and then it reads whatever your hand motions are. Like I had to be a hand puppet Wario speaking when I was told to speak, and I'm doing it right now, which is weird. I'm sad you're not in front of me. Or like catching a Frisbee and like making sure you close your hand so that the hand on screen will catch it. Like, it's insane what Joy-Cons are capable of. I have learned more about the capability of Joy-Cons from WarioWare Move It than 1-2-Switch or 1-2-Switch Party. Like, which were supposed to be the tech demos. No. Yeah. Impressed by WarioWare, which is probably going to be the last true Joy-Con, like, testament game before we get the sequel console to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, probably.
The successor
the
Switch
are about.
Yeah.
So fantastic, man.
It's just $50 for the amount of fun that we had with it already. Totally worth it. I would play through it again on Dale's account so that she can have a completed story mode. That would not bother me. I want to play around with party mode. I want to make sure that I unlock all of the micro games, because that's the other thing about the WarioWare series, is that one playthrough of the story does not necessarily mean that you'll get to play all of the games. So yeah. Oh, and there's Bok Bok mode. Gotta talk about the chicken mode, where you put your dominant hand on your forehead and your recessive hand on your butt, and then you're a chicken. Being a chicken.
And then you have to answer a cell phone.
Yep. With your butt. No, it's I think what really impressed me about the game is I was so expecting it to just be like us alternating games, but there are so many co-op exclusive games where, like, if you're playing with two players, you're going to get these games. And within those games, like, this is what co-op is the reason, and it's got to be coach co-op. It doesn't have online, but coach co-op is the reason to get this game. Because, like, one of the ones that, like, blew me away is I was in night stance and I was rowing a boat while Dale was in baka stance and had to catch a fish. And, like, I had to row over the fish, and then she baka and had to go down and pick up a fish out of the water. Like, man. The fact that, like, there are moments where it's like player one has to do a certain stance and player two does a second stance. It's so there's so much depth in a WarioWare game, and I'm not surprised by that. I'm somebody who, like, has seen all of the depth inside of every WarioWare game that I've played, except for Smooth Moves. I'll admit that. It's the only one that I don't own. I only did it on a rental, and even then I was like, this is okay, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, but everything that you're talking about is exactly like what I was talking about earlier with the ways in which they used Smooth Moves to really think about not just what was happening on screen, but happening in the player space. Right? Well, like, everything that you're talking about is exactly that. And so I'm not surprised either that it works as well as it does, because this is what WarioWare has always been so good at. And it's part of the reason why they don't get called tech demos like things like 1-2-3 Switch do, right? Because they do go so in depth, and they do come out later in system lifespans and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about looking ridiculous. Fighting Volcano Wario, when we lost 2 of our lives, he erupted and we had to deflect the rocks, and the way to deflect was to dance, and we had to floss with the Joy-Cons in order to do it. And, like, by that point, our parents were home. Like, we tried to do it while they went out for my mother's birthday, and they got home right as we were in the final level. So they got to witness us have to dance like idiots in order to win the game.
Nice.
So, and they were just kind of, like, staring like, the fuck is this? So it definitely nails the, like, outside observer fun of it all. But I was so hesitant to get it. Like, especially as somebody who, like, what's the freaking one? Get It Together was fun, but it didn't feel like WarioWare, at least not like WarioWare Gold, as much as it is like a compilation of all 300 games that existed beforehand. Like, it was awesome because it's everything that I love about WarioWare in one package. If they want to, like,
it also, WarioWare Gold kind of falls, the other reason that I think a lot of people kind of turn their nose up at it is it falls into that category of game that Nintendo does sometimes. They did the same thing with the Mario Party stuff. Remember when they put out the top 100?
Yeah.
Where they just, like, it doesn't feel like much effort or thought went into putting the package together, but because the original thing was so good, they know they can get away with that sometimes. You know, these are a lot of the same complaints we had about the latest All-Stars packaging, right? Where they threw together 64, Sunshine, and
Odyssey.
Galaxy, right?
Galaxy, yeah.
And, like, a lot of what we said was, like, this is a great collection, but it's only a great collection because the stuff that's here was already great to begin with. There isn't anything about the package that makes it anything more than what it already was. And I think that's where Gold falls for a lot of people, is like, it's awesome that all that stuff is there and available, but it also was just like that stuff was already good. They want, you know, people want a little bit something new, a little bit of something that really kind of, like, surprises them.
Exactly what you're talking about, where, like, the repackaged, the Nintendo compilation game is it's unfortunate that because they have that negative, like, sort of aura around when they do that, WarioWare Gold, the reason why I talk about it and I try to celebrate it is they put together a whole new story for it. Like, they didn't need to do that. They could have just put all the stuff into it. They, like, by creating Lulu and having her try to, like, prove herself to Wario And his answer being like, well, if you want to prove yourself to me, play through all these old games. Like, it was definitely more of a package and more of an experience than, like, say, if you had to beat Super Mario 64 and then they had, like, connective tissue that got you to Sunshine after doing that.
And I will say that Nintendo has also broken the mold in this place in a lot of ways. You know,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, that's what we see with something like RPG coming up. But we've seen them go back to games and also do really well at it. They just there's always going to be that contingency of people that's always going to turn their nose up at any type of remake or re-release or whatever, because that's just they don't seem to recognize the importance of kind of keeping these things playable and available to people. But that's a different conversation, I guess. But like, I do think it is fair to call it out when Nintendo doesn't do that, like they say we did with the All Stars remake, or with what happened a lot with the Top 100 with the Mario Party mini games collection that they put out. It's cool that with WarioWare they have that happens to fall on the better side of them doing that kind of repackaging. But again, shouldn't surprise me, because the more and more that we've talked about this series, the more and more I really have to give it to them. Like, this is just a pretty solid series for them that doesn't get talked about enough. And unlike something like a Pikmin, where like it's because there's like 10 years between each release or whatever, like this is a consistently present like game that people are still into, and there are people that are fans of every version of this game.
Yeah.
Even Game and Watch. That's me.
That's Sejohn. I mean, if I had played it, then I would definitely. It's something I should try to get my hands on to give it a shot. I will admit that. And I will try to do that before the next WarioWare game comes out. But I will say, I mean, Gold coming out, celebrating 15 years of the series, and repackaging games that people hadn't been able to play on a 3DS in those, like, since that original time. It was a nice treat for us. And I remember being surprised when people were like, oh, it's just a compilation. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. But also, like, better gyroscope technology for all of the Twisted game. Better touch technology for all of the touched games. Like, they put in the time. They didn't just port it over. They realized that, like, oh, we could do something good with this. And WarioWare, as much as it's about the, like, mind-numbing ease of being thrown different types of games to play in, like, 5-second increments, the story is really what makes it sing, right? Knowing that, like, you're playing Mona's games as Mona tries to get to work before she's late. Or it's Dribbles and Spits and it's their final, like, drop-off as taxi drivers. And it's, 9-Volt trying to get to the store to get the last, like, Game Boy Advance SP that was released that day.
Right.
Like they give you all the story, and then they give you these beautiful, like, animated cutscenes, and like this one, like the remixes and how the remixes work, that like they get launched into the air and then they land on tour buses, and then like as we're on the tour bus, we're all playing our games. Like, it's, I love the series, and I can't deny that. So even when, like, I'm not a big fan of the movement gimmick, right? Like, oh, motion control gimmick. The charm that this game has really elevated and made me excited to be playing a new one of them. So, high five to WarioWare Move It. I don't know, would that be like handheld mode, or like maybe sky stretch,
no,
or
you probably
scales?
use the motion controls. Just make sure that you strap that Joy-Con to your hand before you do.
Seriously, like, Dale and I were able to make it work, and it took a lot of adaptation through. Don't be a freaking hero. Your Joy-Cons came with the straps. They built this game with the straps in mind. And I'll just admit that. I mean, even like it's Pounce mode that you play one of the boss fights where you have to cook steaks and then you flip the Joy-Con over to flip the steak over, and then you have to pick it up and serve it. Like, it's robot hands in that one, and they run out of power. So what you have to do is lift them up while they're drooping from your wrists to recharge them.
Nice.
So, like, the way that Dale and I, like, tricked the game was ridiculous. It was a good old-fashioned good time. So yeah, WarioWare Move It. It's out there, and I mean, if you give it a try, it'll be fun. And I guess while we're talking about WarioWare, we should talk about his less popular red-colored like rival, right? Fucking
Okay.
Mario.
Yeah, where is this going?
Well, this is the fact that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 6 releases this coming Thursday.
Yeah.
So, just like heads up, spoilers. Next episode of the Say Report, we're gonna be talking a lot about that. We're gonna try to get some games in. I mean, Funky Kong, Diddy Kong, Pauline. I'm so excited to play. I mean, Rainbow Road. It's cliche to say it, but it's probably the best Rainbow Road. My favorite is always going to be Mario Kart 7 because it is a rally style course. I love that, like, Rainbow Road should go on forever. Why would it loop? So, like, what they did with 7 and making it like a rally course. The same thing they did for, like, the Super Nintendo one as they brought it to Mario Kart 8, where, like, you kind of Mobius strip it in order to make it different the whole time through. I'm excited to see what they're going to do when they bring Rainbow Road from Mario Wii to it. It's so iconic. Like, it really is an iconic stage for
I'm
me.
super excited, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have that to talk about. I mean, that's really it. And then after next episode, we'll be friggin' a week out from Super Mario RPG, which I know I'm getting that day one, because I gotta know.
Am.
Like, I'm too excited.
I am really curious to know if the what do you call it fight is still in it. The Final Fantasy, not Final Fantasy.
Well, okay. I mean, do you want me to spoil it for you? Because
I know that they were talking about doing something with it. There was like some release a couple of weeks ago about how fans will be surprised or some nonsense like that.
So I think fans will be surprised because I think they're going to do something in addition to it. But there has been Japanese, like, not translated, not released in America, promo videos that have spotlighted.
Awesome.
So
yeah, no, they announced that there was going to be something akin to it. So like whatever that may be, I won't.
I mean, I want Mario to fight Sephiroth. Let's be fucking honest.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
that's all I keep thinking. They got him for fucking.
You have him for Smash Brothers.
For Smash Bros, right? You got him for Smash Bros.
I would love to. I want to fight, and I want a fucking Mario style version of One Winged Angel. Like, I want it to happen, but
I mean, they're actually this is a crazy fucking like swing that we're taking. We are not saying that this is definitely what's going to happen, but I will point out that one of the big reveals of what they're doing in terms of updating for this one, they've added a bunch of like summon style like cutscene mid-battle cutscenes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So like, you talk about wanting to have that kind of stuff in it. It seems like they definitely built an engine that would handle that, because they're literally showing these character team up moves or whatever they're calling them and stuff. Like, those all get their little like cutscene action. Yeah. Like I it's entirely possible.
I know. I'm excited. Yeah, because they showed off the one that's going to be Malo, Gino, and Mario's triple attack in a fight against Boyer. Or Bowyer. Like, I can't watch any more of it, but then I see the things, and like, it's Japanese, so I won't understand anything that they're saying. And then, like, at the end of it, they show that particular fight that you were hoping is still in there, and it looks even cooler, because the whole argument of that character, it being that, like, I can't exist in a 3D plane, I am a 2D creature, like, taken to a whole new level. It's just, I love it. I love Super Mario RPG, and I'm excited to play through it again. And honestly, it could just be Super Mario RPG with better graphics, and it would be enough for me.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a fun one. I'm
so be a good
excited
time.
about that.
So I mean, we'll have a deep dive and we'll share our experiences with that. But yeah, there's the Mario stuff. Is there anything else you want to make sure we got to talk about this week, Sejohn? Do we want to give each other tasks for next week, or?
I mean, that's hard with what do you call it, dropping, with Mario Kart dropping. I mean, I don't know what we want to do task wise, but
I mean, I definitely think so. We're going to talk about Mario Kart. I don't think we need a task. I think we have that there.
Yeah.
We're going to have a task for next episode. I'm
going to task you with making sure that you play Mario Kart with me before we.
I've always played Mario Kart with you. What do you do? No, yeah, I'll make sure that we get some games in. That's a good task. Anything else you want to talk about, though, or share? Like, anything else going on, or?
No, I mean, like, I've pretty much hit the end of I think anything I'm ever gonna do with Wonder. Just in terms of my own game. I have gotten every single badge except for one, so I think that probably gives anybody that's at that point in the game an idea of probably what's left. And I just am not having a good time with it, so I don't think I'm gonna push myself.
All right, so spoilers. Have you unlocked the final trial?
I mean, that's the right. That's the badge trial, right?
Yes, the badge
Is that
trial. I just wanted to make
yeah?
sure. Yeah.
There's no way to get the other medals if I didn't. So yes.
Yeah, well, I'm making
Because
sure.
you have to get
yeah.
all of the stuff in that final level. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to get all the stuff in that final level. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure that you all you have to earn is that final badge.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
the
okay.
only thing I have left is that final badge.
Yeah.
I have all other badges. So,
And
I just don't think I'm going to push myself to do it because I just have found myself just not having fun with it, which is such a bummer because clearly I enjoyed my time so much with it that I got all of the other badges and stuff. And I'm going through it now with friends and family. Like we have another game going that's like a multiplayer game, and that's super fun too. But in terms of pushing myself any further with me, like getting into the like grit of that game, I am okay with where I have gotten in that game.
You know what I was going to lead this episode off with before the reveal that like HBO has fake Twitter accounts to troll you? I was going to say last week we dedicated a pretty heavy amount of time to talking about how like no skips have been found yet. It seems like everything's good. And parallel to us talking about Mario Wonder like seemingly having no skips, they were discovering the skip. And right now the fastest clear time that I know of, and I like searched through it, is 1 hour and 30 minutes and 11 seconds.
Yeah, there's a skip that allows you to skip the first 3 worlds, essentially, right? That's
Yeah,
what it was.
it's an out of bounds skip using 2 players. Usually, it's 1 player, 2 controllers that's doing it. But it's very easy to get out of bounds, and then you can walk past like any of the blockage parts of the game. And the game is coded to open up Bowser once you've beaten worlds 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
So you don't need any of the royal seeds from 1, 2, or 3, which is very interesting.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah,
stuff.
like that was discovered and that has been utilized. And I'm so fearful that Nintendo is going to patch it because it's just sort of what they do when big things like this, even though it is not something that a casual player is going to like stumble upon and be able to use. Like it is very much, we have beaten our heads against the game as a speedrunning community, and this is what we found. The royal we, not me. I was not part of it at all. But and what they're doing with it is cool, right? Because now there is an interest in people actually speedrunning it. I've watched a bunch of people speedrun the game and get like that close to 90-minute clear time of the game. And that's been a lot of fun. But then like someone like Grand Pooh Bear, who's very well known in the Mario speedrunning community, he's like, I want more game in my games. So as much as I was excited to see skips found, it skips half the game.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in that. So there's very much still an all royal seeds category in addition to an any % category. And I hope that Nintendo doesn't think like, oh, we got to patch this.
Oh, it'll be interesting to see how they react to it.
Yeah.
They were so quick to come out and talk about how pristine the game was. I can see them definitely wanting to maintain that image and get that like sorted ASAP. But on the other hand, as you were talking about, it wasn't really drawing in this particular crowd that Mario games famously draw in, and so like maybe they leave it for that reason. I don't know. Nintendo is always a mystery to us, you know. No matter how many times we talk about how they won't do what everybody else is doing, they suddenly do, and how many times we talk about they'll probably do this because everybody else is doing it, they just never will. They're such their own animal.
Yeah. It's very true. And this is just going to be another case study in that. I hope they don't patch it, but based on what they did to Super Mario Odyssey when similar things were found, or Metroid Dread when similar things were found, I would be very surprised if they don't already have a team working on fixing this particular problem. And I don't know, like then you just reset it to the original version of the game. That's what they all do, right? Legacy speedruns are totally a thing.
Yeah, right.
So who knows what will be coming down the line. But yeah, so I'm currently working through Spider-Man 2 on PS5. I had really hoped to finish before the recording, but that didn't happen. I'll just admit that did not happen. I did WarioWare, and that really kind of tired me out yesterday.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so I should have that to talk about next week in addition to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, The Final Wave, where CJ and I will be playing. So if you know us and you want to reach out and you want to join us, or even if you don't, reach out, thesareport@gmail.com. We can try to get a lobby going, and that'll be fun, right? Hopefully.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Anything else to add, Siege?
No, let's send this one home.
All right, cool. So we're going to send this one over to Will. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Take us home, Will.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.